We've had the night review, which raised issues about efficiency savings, which the fire service believe they've already mainly delivered. Also, big issues about the distribution of government funding for the fire service. Now, these are very important matters. We want the Minister to produce his response, and then once we've considered that response, we'll make recommendations on issues about efficiency, how money can be saved, how government money can be appropriately distributed.
There's a huge financial pressures on all emergency services. And then there's the interoperability of the fire service within itself. So how do fire brigades actually operate and coordinate between each other? And then there's how do they work with the other two emergency services and indeed the other sort of tier one responders as well. And if that wasn't enough, then there's also how is policy created? In other words, dealing not just with one department, DCLG, but also contending with the fact that ambulance answers to the Department of Health and the police answer to the Home Office.
One of the major challenges that fire services are facing is perhaps a staff morale and motivational one with the looming financial challenge and the job cuts and cuts to frontline services that are happening across the country.
They've been very successful. They've done a lot of work around prevention and almost they've become victims of their own success now. So the demand for fire has gone down, whereas you look at other services like ambulance where the demand has gone up. And so they've got to find cuts like the rest, and I can speak for the police force. You know, we've got to find significant savings in our budget over the next coming years, and it's only going to get worse. I'm sure it's not going to get better. And it's really looking at how do we reduce that demand, but how do we keep people safe?
Other challenges are when the public see fire stations closing because they are no longer needed, they will see that as a threat and will become agitated thinking that perhaps they are at risk. So there is a challenge about making the public understand that the incidence of fire has dropped dramatically over recent years.
Looking to the future, we clearly have to accept that the service has been changing over a number of years and no longer is putting out fires the major job. Fire prevention is very important, but also RTAs are a major part of the job, and in the current climate, flooding as well, that isn't a statutory responsibility currently. So how we look forward to the service, I think it's going to be very different in different parts of the country, different risks, very disparate challenges. So how you deal with funding arrangements in particular in a fair way across the country, I think is a major challenge.
The work that we're doing at the moment with the ambulance service and the partnership we've got around the country in the form of co-responders, I think that will only expand, and one possibility not only myself but a lot of colleagues see is perhaps a merger of the fire service and ambulance service in the future. We've also started numerous partnerships around the country with schools and colleges, and I think fire safety and road safety being brought into mainstream education and onto the curriculum, again, will only make the community safer.
If you look, for example, at the moment across Surrey and Sussex, there are 13 emergency control centres. And if a call comes in and it's not, say for example it comes in for ambulance, but it's not for them, it's for one of the other emergency services, there's a manual verbal transfer of data at the moment. Effectively it's a phone call that has to be made. And this can really delay the system up to 4 minutes. And what we're looking at doing is using technology to make that a lot quicker.
49 fire and rescue services is actually too many for this country. We need to consolidate those down, and we're having interesting discussions in the southwest at the moment as to whether under a sort of regional umbrella there can be better coordination of procurement, training and use of equipment and so forth, still remaining a strong link on a county level so that accountability is not lost. And then of course that would overlap quite nicely with the ambulance service, which has already done that consolidation, has already provided those efficiencies. And then of course there's a question as to whether the police would then indeed follow suit. So I think the future is actually very, very bright for the fire and rescue service.
I think it will have much smaller and lighter tenders, because in rural areas the big tenders are quite a hazard sometimes. I think sadly that there will be a lot more boat work. Certainly in Somerset, the fire brigade, fire and rescue service is very, very proactive in helping our residents with their boat service. I think they will do a lot more work with young people who are on the margins of crime. and they are very, very successful at that. And hopefully in 20 years' time we will have fully integrated blue light services.